All right, welcome to the Creation to Cashflow podcast. On this podcast, we discuss strategies to maximize your creativity and help you achieve financial freedom. Michelle, can you believe that this is now the 52nd time that I am asking you, how's it going, Michelle?
That's crazy. I mean, it feels like it has not been over a year that we've been doing this.
I can't believe it. A year goes by so quick, it is frightening, but 52 episodes, and we missed a couple weeks. We post every week, but we started off very ahead, so we've actually been doing this more than a year now, maybe even like 13 months.
Yeah, for sure. At least 13, maybe 14 months. Cause it was almost 2 months in where we were like, maybe we should actually start uploading these now.
Yeah, for anyone who's wondering, we started out like a full maybe 8 weeks ahead, just to, I don't know, we were figuring things out. We were just trying to be prepared, knowing that there might be like chaos involved. But now we are like, we're recording this on Wednesday and it'll be uploaded next week. So now we're 1 week ahead. So we don't have a whole lot of breathing room anymore. We used all of our free skips, but it's just crazy and it's so much fun. And I can't believe this is episode 52. We didn't know whether to celebrate 50 or 52. We kind of celebrate every episode. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know. We could talk about this the whole time.
Yeah, but we're not going to. What are we talking about today, Nick?
We are talking about not giving up. Never give up. And I mean, sure, we've got a long way to go with this podcast. Me and Michelle talk about it. We're like, yeah, what are we going to do like 9 years from now? Like when we like 10 years, like we think in really long time frames because we just know like giving up out of the question. Like not a
Yeah.
chance we would ever like I want to be 80 and just being like, how's it going today, Michelle? Like so anyway, we just want to remind you guys like we're gonna hit on a lot of that today. We're gonna hit on some really good stories and just remind you guys never to give up on things because you are going to have your ups and downs in business, in life, in mindset, in self-development. Like it is so easy. The lows can be very low. It is very easy to quit things. I have my own highs and lows in life and in business, and we all do. And just because we have this podcast, I don't want you guys to think that we are perfect or we don't have these because, like, oh my God, the swings are crazy constantly for us both. And it's normal. And we want to normalize this so that you guys know never to quit when you're on a low because you're just getting ready for your next high.
Well, yeah, and the lows are when you actually learn, and that's where you learn more about who you are and you grow and you get more experience. And then you can pivot if you need to. But like the lows are where it's at. Honestly, the lows are like one of the best parts, and you have to go through them in order to grow and get better.
Yeah, the highs would not feel very high if you didn't have lows. They would just feel like normal. Like that's just your baseline. But like the reason that doing hard things like building a business or recording 52 episodes of a podcast, like the reason that these things are fulfilling and rewarding is because it's very hard. Like on our when we did our 20th episode, we kind of talked about that rule of like what is it, 98% of podcasts don't make it past 20 episodes or something.
Yeah. Crazy.
And I've had a podcast that did that exactly. I think it was the Get Ahead with Nick podcast. And I was like going in, I was like, I'm going to do this thing. And like after like 8 episodes, it just fell off. It's very hard to be consistent at things, especially if the gratification is going to be delayed.
Yeah. And if you're doing it alone,
That's a huge thing, too. It is so much easier with an amazing co-host like yourself, Michelle. So thanks for just being so awesome this whole year. It's so much fun doing this. And I want to remind everyone like we have not read an ad once. We have not done a single thing to monetize this because we were doing it for you guys. Like and we still are. Moving forward this year, like maybe we'll try and get some sponsors going that you guys are going to enjoy. But like this podcast was not a money grab. It was more like we wanted to be a money grab for you guys. We wanted you to listen and go make a bunch of money and go do great things with your life. And now it was easy to say that on like episode 1 or episode 13 when we were like, oh, we don't even have any sponsors. But then we were like, let's just keep delivering the value to you guys.
Yeah, and I think that speaks huge volumes about our intent behind this. And I'm sure people know this is more like we have conversations with one another. It's not like we're teaching you 3 steps to this, this, and this. Like, I love podcasts like that, but we are more conversational. And I think that we're very picky too about who we would even want to promote to our audience. Like, I'm not just going to give anybody a sponsorship. You know what I mean? I need to care about them. I need to make sure they're doing good things. So that way our transparency and authenticity and just trust stays with you guys, because that's the most important thing to me. Way more important than money.
Way more important. And we're also figuring things out too as we go. Like, I remember maybe around 20 or 30 episodes telling you guys like something that's worked really well for me is just wake up and go to work and do your most important task. And then I took this amazing vacation that I've told you guys about, and I learned, I was like, that actually was burning me out and turned me into a work addict in the worst way. Like, I needed my dopamine hit from accomplishing a task, and I had to step back and be like, life is more than a to-do list, because the to-do list never ends. It's like, what do you do outside of your to-do list that matters and that impacts other people and that makes you feel good? And this podcast is one of those things for us. So thank you all so much for listening, whether this is your first episode or you listen to all of them. We love you guys so much. We are so grateful. Can't emphasize enough as well how much your feedback means to us. So leave us reviews, leave us ratings, and go on creationtocashflow.com and leave us voice messages telling us what's going on in your life that you want us to talk about. Or you can just type it up too. But we really like hearing from you guys, and we'll make a whole episode about your issues if you give us enough details on it. So we want you guys to be involved too. Like, we do this for you. It's your podcast just as much as ours. You guys are all the shareholders because you listen to it.
Yep, exactly.
So anyway, let's start to dive in a little bit more to not giving up now that we've hit on all that exciting stuff. First thing, it's if giving up is an option in whatever you're doing, you'll likely take it. So you need to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, whether you're trying to learn an instrument or build a business or make social media videos or whatever you want to do with your life, you need to make sure giving up is not even an option. Because if it's an option, when those lows get low, it's very easy to just quit. It's very easy.
Yeah. I mean, I think human nature to want to stay guarded and protected. It's in our instincts. We've talked about that a lot in the past. We see danger and we want to fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And it's just like, you have to know that things that seem scary aren't going to kill you like they did back when we lived in caves. You know, like, life is different now. We still have that chemical and that instinct in our brain, but we have to navigate it and not let ourselves have that out.
So what do you think, Michelle, would be a practical way that someone can just like eliminate the possibility of quitting something?
I think a lot of it has to do with your instincts, and it depends on what you're quitting, right? Like, I think we need to set that foundation first, because, for example, you quit your job as a civil engineer, but you knew it wasn't what you were passionate about. So I think that what it really boils down to is, if it is in you as a passion, if you care about it, if you enjoy doing it, if you're gifted at it, that is your sign that this is something you can't give up on, because then you're giving up on who you were made to be. You're giving up on a part of you that was literally instilled in you from birth. And so I think that you owe it to yourself and those around you to not give up on that because it's in you. I think that's like rule number 1. There's a reason you enjoy it. There's a reason you want it. So do yourself a favor and don't give up on that ever. And yes, you can pivot like you did with the civil engineering. You wanted to teach there. You learned through that, like, oh, I want to teach this course to help these people. But you knew, oh, maybe it's not within this job. I'm not giving up on my passion to teach. I'm just not even giving up. I'm just quitting this position so I can really focus more on what I enjoy, which is coaching people.
Exactly. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about is that's like almost a pivot. Like even though I like technically I quit the job, I like wrote a letter and I of course I was already a content creator here, so I have a 3-minute video sitting at my desk just like holding these envelopes, just like bouncing them up and down, just being like trying not to vomit before I go cuz I took it, I don't want to say the easy way out, but like I mean, I had to face this, but what I did was I left my resignation letter. I stayed late that day because I was often the first one there and the last one to leave. So I left one of these letters and I hand wrote a letter to each of my, like I had several bosses and I hand wrote a letter to each one, like thanking them for like what they've done for me, but letting them know like also like next month will be my last month. And it was like it was just a pivot for me. Even though I'm technically quitting the job, it was just a pivot so that I could go be of service to others. I wanted to coach and I tried to coach there. I asked them to set me up to coach people that needed to take that special exam to become like a civil engineer in training. And then if you've passed that exam and you work for 4 years, you can get licensed. I wanted to help people on that path and they didn't really give me a chance to. And I was like, well, I need to help somebody. So I pivoted. Another big reason, like you hit on that, like you need a why. Like you need a why. Another one is like your self-talk. If your self-talk is it's just non-negotiable, like when your brain starts going to that place of like, oh, like maybe I just stop, you got to instantly just flip the switch and be like, nope, we are not going down that rabbit hole. Because one thing I've learned as a yoga teacher and from taking a lot of yoga classes and meditating is that like your thoughts are not all real. You might have a thought that comes up that's like, oh, I should quit this. That doesn't mean that it's a good idea or that you should even entertain that. Like you could just like stop thinking about that. You could just start thinking about breathing and all of a sudden like your brain will just kind of clear up. Or you can go think about like maybe I'm just hungry. Maybe I just need to go eat. Maybe I just need a nap. Maybe I just need to go for a walk. But you can't let those things fester.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I've learned over my years of experience of being alive is when you do push through and get past something super hard, it's almost easier to snap yourself out of it, like you just mentioned. But you kind of have to get over that first initial, not hurdle, but just like, I did it kind of situation where you're like, oh, I did this once, I can do it again, you know?
That helps me so much that like I did this hard thing, I could do another hard thing. Michelle, what would you say are like one or some of the hardest things that you've ever done?
Losing weight was one of them because I kept telling myself, oh, I'm just growing. Oh, this is just part of like becoming a woman. Oh, whatever, whatever. Like I was making excuses and I really wasn't living a healthy lifestyle. And so I really focused on switching my mind up, getting into therapy, really creating a different lifestyle, not eating fast food anymore. I still haven't since 2020. It is now 2024. It's crazy that I still haven't had fast food. But it's like a whole lifestyle change. That to me was so hard because I lived in the South at the time. Fried food was everything. I was very busy. I was working more than 40 hours a week and volunteering so much. And it's just like, I had to literally take myself out of my current reality. And that was so scary and difficult. And a lot of my friendships changed. And it was just like an entire reality shift. I mean, even when I left college as in my junior year of college from Texas and moved to New Orleans to pursue acting, that was scary. When I left New Orleans and moved to Los Angeles and went from paying $1,000 a month for my 3-bedroom house mortgage to paying $8,000 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment, it's just like, that's scary. That is so terrifying to think of, but it's really not. Now that I'm living and I'm like, it really isn't scary. Like, I'm not scared anymore. But those are like huge, dramatic life shifts. When I used to have 20 cents in my bank account like 10 years ago, you know, no money to my name, you know, it's these things that it's like, I've done it once, I can do it again. But I think one of the hardest ones was the whole lifestyle, because that is a literal reality shift where you have to be so delusional that, hey, what I'm currently living doesn't have to be my reality, especially if I'm not making good choices. So let me switch up the choices I'm making, you know, wake up earlier, exercise every day, move my body, and then everything else will like kind of fall into place. And it did.
Whoa, those are powerful. Those are really powerful. And it's those hard things that like you did the hard thing and you proved to yourself like, oh, I survived. I'm now better because of it. That now you have this like, I don't give up on anything. I would never give up
Yeah.
on anything attitude. Like,
Yeah.
no matter what it is, you're allowed to still make pivots. You're allowed to, sometimes we need breaks from things. That's important to acknowledge.
Mhm.
Like, one of the hardest things for me, especially because I was doing this while working 50 hours per week at my civil engineering job, while building my own business, while now starting to work and coach at Brands Meet Creators, while doing a 200-hour yoga teacher training program, I decided it would be a great time to take up Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. I figured that would be perfect. What would make me feel better than to go be the essentially like the dummy for all of
Mhm.
these huge fighters to just try and remove my limbs and head from my own body? That was like one of the hardest things ever. And even though like I'm currently on a break from jujitsu because I need to get my left shoulder a little bit healthier before I can step back into it. But for 18 months, I went 2 to 4 times per week to get my ass kicked. Did I do 5% of the ass kicking? Hell yeah. But 95% of it was getting the shit beat out of me by a bunch of people that have been doing this way longer. And my whole thing was like, but if I just keep going, like, not that I was doing it for this reason, but like, if I keep going, I'm not going to be the one getting my ass kicked. I will be able to get to a point where like now I'm at the point where I can at least defend myself super well from someone who is way bigger and stronger than me. Like they're going to have a very hard time ripping my head off. But at first it was like they were just throwing me around and it was so discouraging, and I would just get hit in the face and like bruised ribs and things and injuries constantly happening. Like people are just breaking limbs like right in front of me and bleeding on each other. Like I had someone's blood drip into my eye and I was like, ugh.
Ugh.
Um, there were no issues there, I guess.
I'm like, I hope he doesn't have any diseases.
Yeah, no, he was like, "Oh no, I'm good." I was like, "What? Okay,
Oh my
I'll just
gosh.
have to take your word for that." But anyway, this was like one of the hardest things ever for me, and it came at a time that was probably less than ideal. But boy, did it toughen me up to this just like don't give up attitude because I was doing all these other things that would have been easy to give up as well.
Hold on. I just have to say, I think that is a huge personality trait of successful entrepreneurs. We're not afraid to be the dummy in the room again.
That is so accurate. Kind of like we talked about the other day when I was like laying in the sand, like learning to surf in Costa Rica. I was like, I don't mind being the dummy. I don't. Like right now I'm the guitar dummy. Like I'm putting up videos on my stories. Like I still don't really know the strings. I know you gave me the thing like Eddie 8 Dynamite,
Dynamite.
Eddie
Goodbye, Eddie.
Goodbye Eddie. Yeah, like I don't know the strings yet, but like I don't mind being the dummy at things. I don't mind being humbled. I can learn from anybody. Like I know when to shut up and just listen to other people talk. And I don't need to be the smartest person in the room. I know that even if I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm probably not. And I should definitely not act like it. And you're right. Like, this is something that most entrepreneurs have built into their operating system because they're used to hard stuff and not quitting at it.
And even me, so for example, or anybody, let's say that you're a 40-year-old and you have a successful career and you're really good at that thing. I know we have another podcast about getting started, but it just takes a lot of humbleness to get out of your confident, secure, comfortable career and go do something that is entirely different because you're going to be insecure. You're going to not be confident. And it is a horrible feeling to feel those things because it's something new. I'm great at content creation. I know that. I know how to create content. But being a good dog mom, oh my God, I cannot tell you. I'm not a crier, but I have cried at a few things this past week because I'm like learning about how to control a dog from that Caesar Milan guy, or I probably pronounced that wrong, but the dog whisperer. And I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to talk to him like a baby. Didn't know that. Oh, I'm not supposed to let him walk in front of me. Didn't know that. Like I'm learning all these things, and I'm watching his videos just crying because I'm like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. He's gonna pounce on other dogs, and I'm just like insecure. Does that mean I need to give my dog back to my mom. Absolutely freaking not, because I've done this before and I can do it again. And yesterday I went to the dog park and I was so scared because there's other dogs there. And long story short, because I know I talked to you about this Monday, by the end of the time there, like, yes, at first he would pounce on other dogs, but I literally had to check in with myself, do exactly what you just said with the self-talk. And I was like, Michelle, you are assertive. He can feel your energy. If you're nervous, he'll be nervous. So you need to be delusionally confident right now. And the first two dogs, he would like growl at them and I would get him off of them. You know, he's 80 pounds. He's really big. And then all the other four dogs that eventually came, he was totally chill with. And I was like cheering and I was like, I can't wait to tell Nick, like, I freaking did it. I freaking did it. Like, I know it's not perfect and I'm going to have to keep training him, but it's one of those things where it's like, if I'm nervous, he's nervous. And I'm going to start out not confident, but I'm going to learn. I'm going to watch videos. I'm going to listen to audiobooks. I'm going to do whatever I can to learn that thing. So anyway, I had to share that because I know I've been super stressed out about him. And it's just crazy how quickly we can get into a very insecure mindset, but we've got to snap ourselves out of it. And getting in a new environment will force you to do that. You have to do something new.
That's so awesome and inspiring. I know like dog stuff is really, really hard. So that's amazing. That's like a huge test. Like, okay, how far have we come? We're gonna go be around other dogs. That's a huge test and accomplishment. And like, if you weren't so resilient from your other life experiences, it would have been very easy to start walking up to the dog park, see that there's lots of dogs there, and just say, nope, we're gonna go home.
Yep. Oh my God. Because I wasn't a confident person. I feel like confidence bleeds into other areas, right? Like your confidence with surfing, like, yeah, at first you're like, okay, I'm going to take a lesson. Well, there's step number one. You learn from somebody who knows what they're doing. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to get my face in the literal sand and paddle around with the air, not the water. Cool. Sounds great. But it's like you eventually rode some waves, right? Like you have to go through these steps. Yours was a day thing. Like you literally started from zero and then you worked your way up in a day, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But like with guitar, I know I'm looking at like a probably 2 to 3 year journey to be able to like, I don't even know. I don't even know where I'll be in 2 to 3 years, but I practice every day for what used to, my fingers used to only be able to handle like 10, 20 minutes a day. Now I'm like, my fingers just kind of bleed a little and it's fine. And I could go like an hour to 2 hours of practice every single day. And I have been. And right now it's like, I'm in the honeymoon phase of it. It's still super fun and new, but like, what about 6 months from now when I'm now over this activity? Like, I'm not going to quit. I'm going to still practice. I'm going to still be on that journey. And that's another thing too. Like when you were walking up to that dog park, it's like your journey was almost like about to begin right there. And you could have quit before it even started. Like so many people quit things before they even start because it's easy to just let your self talk be like, ah, why don't I spare myself the challenge entirely and just stay comfortable rather than getting uncomfortable and being humbled and having to go through all of this and deal with like maybe I quit at some point and then I'm discouraged. Some people are like, I'll just never start. But
Yeah.
that's the wrong mindset. That's a quitter's mentality.
I mean, you've already quit. You've already given up
Yeah.
without even trying. And because you knew you were supposed to do something, you had something in front of you, or you had an opportunity and you talked yourself out of it because it was going to be uncomfortable. You were going to be insecure. You weren't confident about it. And you already have a life that you know what you're doing. And so it's just like, that is what I think separates a lot of people from one another.
It's true. It's so true. And you did a great job talking about like what were you thinking? Like what did you have to tell yourself to not quit when you were walking up to the dog park? Um, here's another thing. This is such a funny one because it was my own fault. But like funny enough, one of the other hardest things that I ever did was training to become a lifeguard because I did this when I was 19 maybe, and at the time I had like very little body fat. And if you don't know this, if you like someone who is overweight and has a lot of fat makes for a great swimmer because they float. And if you're muscular and don't have a lot of body fat, you sink. And like the first day of my lifeguard training, there's like they took this way too seriously at my college because I did it at my college. And I asked other people like what their experience was like, and they're like, oh, not like that. But anyway, it was super intense, just like the test to even see if you like qualify for this. And this was my own fault, but it ended up making for something really challenging. I did stay up until probably 3 in the morning, like drinking with my friends.
Oh my gosh.
And I had to do this training at like 6 or 6:30, and it was one of the hardest things ever. Obviously, it's my own fault because I was so wildly hungover, and also I hadn't been in a pool in a long time. Like I would consider myself a good swimmer, but like I didn't have access to a pool to like even prepare for this. And then the first thing they had us do was 12 full laps, meaning there and back in an Olympic pool. That was just like the warm up, and the room was doing somersaults. I was so dizzy, and you're not allowed to take a break. If you take a break, you're out. And I like had to do this, and it ended up being an 8 hour day of like trainings and exercises and things. And I threw up so many times in the bathroom. But it, and like I said, a lot of this is my fault, but I'm glad actually. I learned a lot of lessons about like preparing for things because I was still figuring out my life a little bit, but it ended up making for something amazing because it was like the hardest thing ever. Like that stands out in my mind among other hard things I've done, like becoming a civil engineer and, 12-hour walk and like cool things that I've done. That lifeguard training day stands out for me. And it started my like, if you just keep going, no matter how bad things are, you will succeed. The only way to fail at something is to quit.
Yeah. And again, it's so important to know what is worth quitting and what we're actually talking about today, which is things that you should be doing that you really shouldn't be quitting. Like there are things that you need to quit, like a toxic relationship, leave. Because what you're really quitting on is your future and what you're owed and what you deserve. So it's like, it is perspective. What are you quitting on? But in this podcast, we're always talking about things that are beneficial for you and not sticking through something that's like very unhealthy, toxic, not good for you, not helping you thrive kind of vibe.
You did this, right? Like you had to step back from a difficult relationship.
Several. Yeah, no, I've left a lot of toxic relationships. I had boyfriends since the 4th grade. Up until my husband, where I finally wrote off all men, all everything, and I was like, no more. And then he came in my life, and then it was just, anyway, that's another day for another story, whatever. Yes, I've left people, and it's been very helpful for me as a woman to know what my worth is by seeing what my worth isn't, like seeing what's not good. So I do help and mentor a lot of relationships and people in my life. Like I've always helped younger women. But yeah, no, leaving somebody when you're in a toxic relationship, when you're in something that's mentally abusive or just kind of toxic codependency, like my high school boyfriend, for example, like it was just not good, and into college, same boyfriend. But it was scary because my whole life revolved around that person. But I had to ask myself, is this person somebody I want my sisters to have a new brother? Like, is this the brother my sisters deserve? Is this a son-in-law my parents deserve? Is this the uncle my nieces and nephews deserve? Like, I had to ask myself that because in my head, it was like, I would stay with them because I love them and, they're good to me sometimes. It's just these little red flags. Like, girl, oh my God, I wish I would have left away earlier when he first cheated on me. But, it's just one of those things where it's like when other people are involved, you have to almost not think about the significant other, but also think about the people around you, your future kids. Who is the dad that they deserve? And you have to ask yourself that, or the mom. So yes, leaving people was really hard for me because you can obviously tell I love people. I love them. I am so loyal to people. That's just like part of being a Sagittarius.
Yeah, you made a big pivot, like you didn't quit, even though you nearly did. You almost were just like, I just won't date anyone. That's what I'll do.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But instead, like you made a big pivot, and it's those big pivots sometimes that are necessary. Like at, at my former job, I saw what my life was going to be by the people around me. And I was like, I need a big pivot because I see what's happening around me. And like you said, those around you will affect you, but also sometimes when you quit on something, it will negatively affect the people around you. So, I mean, there are certain, like certain circumstances where you do need to quit a relationship or a job, but think of that as a pivot, because we don't want to ever in our mind allow ourselves to be like, but I can quit this thing and I can quit this thing. Because if you allow yourself to quit one thing, you'll allow yourself to quit another and another, and the whole goal is to just never quit at anything, especially if you have a good reason for starting in the first place.
Yeah, like photography for me, I used to love it. I volunteered at the church and I was just like training. I had a huge team of volunteers. I know we've talked about that in the past. And then I suddenly didn't like it anymore once I was started getting paid for it. And it was part of my job there. And I was just like, oh, am I not meant to be a photographer anymore? But no, I was just pivoting to video content. Like it was a pivot to be an actress. Like it was a pivot. I never quit photography. I still took a photo of my dog yesterday at the dog park with all the other little doggies. So like photography is still part of me, but I wasn't quitting on that thing because I suddenly didn't enjoy it. I instead had to say, wait, what is it that I'm not enjoying? What can I pivot to instead without fully quitting on this thing I thought I had a passion for?
Yeah, I love that. That's a really good example. And here's another thing too for everyone. In those moments where you're thinking about quitting and things are really hard, you've got to remember, like, what is it going to feel like when you do quit and you now are laying in bed that night, or even in a few minutes when that thing is over? Like when I was trying not to vomit in the pool during this lifeguard training, or like when I just had a grown man knee me in the mouth during jujitsu, and I'm like, this activity, I would much rather not do it. It's so like, what about when I quit and now I have to go like with my family and friends and people on social media or whoever, because I don't care what people think, but like when everyone finds out, like, oh, Nick, you failed your lifeguard thing, like, and then I'm like, yeah, I stayed out too late the night before, and it's like, and everyone's disappointed and not proud, and most importantly, me, because I mean, screw what other people think, but it's something to consider, like you are going to have to face that music, and no matter what it is, like I really love. I don't want to say have an obsession, but I really like books and stories and like documentaries on Navy SEALs. Like when I first discovered cold showers my sophomore year of high school, when I was like depressed in my dorm because it was so cold and I wasn't getting sunlight and I wasn't moving my body right. Uh, like it was like Jocko Willink or somebody that kind of put me on to cold showers. So I went and I sat in a ball in my shower. I sat in a sad little ball of Nick, and I put the water on freezing cold, and it was miserable and I wanted to just stop. But then after like 30 seconds, I was laughing hysterically because I got this rush of like endorphins and things. And I was like, wait a minute, this is exhilarating. This is so fun and feels good. You just have to push past the hard part. And that obviously started a trend of me loving like Jocko Willink and David Goggins and other people. Years later, I go on to make a video about Jocko Willink's Navy SEAL sleep tip that goes super viral and changes my life. And it's all just because like I didn't give up, and I focus on injecting stories into my brain of people that don't give up, because it's cool hearing them talk about like Hell Week, like the hardest thing in the world. And the instructors are like, you guys could quit right now. In 5 minutes, you'll be in a nice warm bed, because they've been in the ocean that's 50 degrees for 8 hours straight and just ran 40 miles that day. And they're like, you could quit right now, be in your warm bed, be at home. And all those people are like, nope, because that feeling in bed is not going to be good.
No. Oh my God. And the confidence that gets built from persevering, it is, I can't explain it, but it's like, I want everybody to be that confident, because you just thrive in life again at everything else. Like if you do something super hard and you fail, but then you get back up and you do it again and you do it again and you don't quit, there is just this like confidence that's instilled in you. And it is so beautiful. And I can literally feel, not to be super new agey, but I can feel people's confidence and I can feel their insecurity. If somebody walks in a room, I can immediately pick up on what's their vibe. And again, I'm not trying to be like, woo, woo, whatever. But like, it's so, because I'm super observant as an actress, but it's like, you want even if it's one of those things like Nick is saying, tell yourself right now, what will your future self thank you for? What is it that you're going to have to tell your friends and family if you do quit, or if you don't quit? Maybe one day you'll be on a podcast talking about how when you did lifeguard training, you didn't quit. Boom. Like, that's a prime example. But it's like, do it to be the confident person. Do it to be the most secure person and confident in who you are as a person. Like, do it for you. Like, you deserve that. And the people around you deserve the most confident you and the most free and happy and passionate, you know?
Yeah, do it for the plot. I was like, all right, cool. This was miserable. And then I got out of the pool. I was like, can I hit the bathroom real quick? And they were like, sure. Just like, you got to be back in 3 minutes. I was like, great. I went, I violently vomited. And then I came back and I was like, this is going to make a good story one day. I didn't ever envision that I would be telling it on a podcast where I have tons of amazing listeners and the best co host ever. And we're doing our 50-second episode. But here we are. So don't quit these things for the plot, just for the story, because it's going to make a good story if you don't quit. It's going to make a real shit story if you do quit.
Yeah. Oh my God. There is no story if you quit. The ending sucks. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that ending. That no movies end with that. That's sad. Or maybe they do, but I don't watch them.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That feels like a perfect note to end on. Honestly, do it for the plot, because it's going to suck if you quit, and that's not the story people want to hear. So if you want to hear more amazing stories for the next year, for the next 52 episodes that we do every single week, subscribe to this podcast. Check out our short form clips at Creation to Cashflow. Go on YouTube and watch the long form video where you can see us actually behaving. And follow me on Instagram and TikTok and wherever else at Get Ahead with Nick. Follow Michelle on all those same platforms at Michelle JH with 2 L's, then 4 E's, JH. Thank you guys so much from the bottom of our hearts for this last year. Can't wait for the next.